There is a small tin lantern sitting on the workbench in my son's shop, and it is casting a warm yellow light across the plane shavings and the smell of pine. It cost me under $9 to build. Not $90, not $40, under $9. And it will burn, if I let it, for somewhere near 40 hours on a single filling, without a wire, without a battery, without a bill, without a signal from anywhere. Now, an English fellow, and I will not name him because I am not in the business of chasing men, went and put a video on the computer where he claimed he could light a small camp for around $9 using a setup he called off-grid. My grandson watched it on a neighbor's phone and came running to me across the yard, and he said, "Grandfather, the English boy is doing what you do." I laughed, "'Cause we have been doing this for 200 years. And no one thought to call it a setup. We called it Tuesday evening. But I tried his method. I tried it exactly the way he laid it out. And then I tried it the way my grandfather taught me, which is older than his grandfather's grandfather. And I am going to tell you, plain and honest, what worked and what did not, and what he left out, and the part that should make you a little uneasy about the whole American lighting industry, and the bills you have been paying since the day you signed for that house. My name is Elias Yoder. I am Amish. I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. On ground my family has worked since 1798. I do not have grid electricity in my home. I do not have a light switch by my door, and yet my house is lit every night, warm and steady, and I have never paid a utility company 1 cent for the privilege of seeing my wife's face across the supper table. Stay with me, because what I am about to walk you through is not a trick and it is not a stunt. It is the honest truth about what light costs, what it should cost, and who has been quietly taking the difference out of your pocket for the last 100 years. The English fellow's $9 setup, and I will be fair to him, it was clever in its way. He took a small solar panel, the cheap kind, the size of a paperback book. He took a little battery pack the size of a bar of soap. He wired in one of those tiny LED bulbs, the sort that runs off a phone charger. He set the whole thing in a mason jar, and he called it a lantern. And on a sunny day in July in the open field, it worked. It gave him a soft blue light for about 4 hours before it went dim, and about 6 hours before it went dark. I built the same thing. I bought the parts from the same places he said. It came, all told, to $8.74. I set it on my porch. It did what he said it would do, for about 4 hours. Then it faded. And on the second day, which was cloudy, it never came back up to full. And on the third day, which was rainy, it did not light at all. Now, here is the part that most folks who watched his video did not think about. That $9 is only the beginning. That little battery inside the bar of soap, it is a lithium cell, and it will die, not in 40 years, not in 20, somewhere between 300 and 800 charge cycles, which is to say, about 2 years of steady use. Then you buy another one, and the panel itself will lose about 20% of its output in 10 years. And the LED bulb, though it is rated for 25,000 hours, is soldered into a plastic housing that will crack in the sun long before the bulb ever burns out. So your $9 is really $9 every 2 years, plus a panel every 10, plus a wire that mice will chew, plus a plastic jar lid that will yellow and split. And it only works when the sun has been kind to you. I am not saying the English boy lied. I am saying he told a small piece of a larger truth. And the larger truth is that his setup depends on a factory in a country you cannot pronounce, and a shipping lane, and a mining operation for the lithium, and a plastic industry, and a solar cell industry. And every one of those industries has its hand in your pocket, quiet as a cat. Now let me show you what my grandfather did, and what his grandfather did before him. In the hills of Berks County, when there was no electric line for 30 miles in any direction, he took a tin can, an ordinary tin can, the kind that held peaches from the summer canning. He cut a small hole in the lid, no bigger than the tip of his little finger. He took a strip of cotton cloth, torn from an old work shirt, about 4 inches long, and he twisted it tight and threaded it through the hole, so about a 1/4 inch stood up above the lid. He filled the can 2/3 of the way with rendered lard from the hog we butchered in November, or with used cooking oil from my grandmother's kitchen, or with the tallow we skimmed off the beef broth. He set the lid back on. He struck a match, and that little lamp burned, soft and orange and steady, for somewhere between 30 and 45 hours on one filling. The cost. Now let me give you the honest cost. The can was free because it was going to the burn pile anyway. The cloth was free because the shirt was already worn through at the elbows. The fat was free because we had rendered it for other things and had more than we needed. The match cost about 1/10 of a cent. So the whole lamp, honestly counted, was worth about a penny. But let us pretend you have nothing. Let us pretend you are starting from an empty English kitchen with no hog and no shirt and no can. You go to the grocery store, you buy a can of soup for $1.29, and you eat the soup. You take an old T-shirt from your drawer, and if you have no old T-shirt, you buy one at the thrift store for $2. You buy a quart of the cheapest cooking oil on the shelf, which is around $3.50. You buy a box of matches for $1.29. Your total, walking out the door, is under $9, and that quart of oil will burn for about 80 hours of light. That is roughly 11 cents an hour, and it drops to nearly nothing once you start saving your bacon grease instead of throwing it in the trash. Now, I want you to sit with that for a moment. The English boy's $9 gives you 4 hours of light on a good day, and then needs the sun to come back. My grandfather's penny gives you 40 hours of light in a thunderstorm, in a blizzard, in a cellar, at 3 in the morning in January when the power lines are down and the neighbors are cold. Which one is the real off-grid setup? I will let you answer that yourself. Let me be honest with you, though, because honest is better than impressive. The tin can lamp is not perfect. It smokes a little if the wick is too long. It smells faintly of what you put in it, which is to say, if you burn bacon grease, you will smell bacon. And some folks find that pleasant, and some do not. It is not as bright as an LED. You will not read fine print by one alone, though 2 set at either end of a table will let my wife do her mending just fine. And it is an open flame, and an open flame must be respected. You do not set it under a curtain. You do not set it where the cat can knock it. You do not leave it burning when you go to the barn. But I have burned these lamps in this house for 50 years, and I have not had a fire because I was taught to respect the flame, the way I was taught to respect the horse and the plow and the shotgun over the door. A tool is only dangerous to the man who does not know it. Now here is the trick most folks get wrong, and I want you to write this down if you have a pencil near you. The wick. The wick is everything. If your wick is pure cotton, it will draw the fat up steady and burn clean. If your wick has any polyester in it, any at all, it will melt and pool and smoke black and stink like a burning tire. You test the cloth by holding a match to a corner of it before you use it. If it curls and smells like burning paper, it is cotton and it is good. If it melts into a hard little bead, throw it out and find something else. My grandmother tore her wicks from the hem of old bed sheets, the ones from before 1955, because those were pure cotton, and lasted her a lifetime. The second trick is the height of the wick above the lid. A 1/4 inch is right. 1/2 inch and you get smoke. 1/8 inch and the flame drowns in the fat. A 1/4 inch. Every time. And you trim it after every long burn with a pair of scissors, straight across, never at an angle. The third trick, and this is the one the English boy would never have thought of because he was raised on batteries, is the reflector. You take a piece of tin, or a scrap of the same can you cut open, and you bend it into a curve behind the flame. It doubles the light thrown forward. My grandfather used to say a good reflector was worth 2 lamps, and he was not wrong. You can set a single lamp with a good curved reflector on the wall behind the sink, and it will light the whole basin for washing dishes at night. Now, I want to take a moment because this is the part that matters, and I do not want you to miss it under all the how-to. Why is the electric company not selling you a tin of lard and a piece of cotton? Why does your hardware store, which sells 400 kinds of light bulbs, not sell a $2 fat lamp? Why did the English boy, who is clever and means well, reach for a solar panel and a battery instead of the thing his own great-grandmother almost certainly used in her kitchen? I will tell you why. Because you cannot bill a man monthly for a piece of cotton cloth. You cannot put a fat lamp on a subscription. You cannot force a family to renew their contract every 2 years on a tin can that will outlive them. The whole modern lighting industry, from the utility to the bulb maker to the solar company, is built on the simple fact that you must keep buying. The bulb burns out. The battery dies. The panel degrades. The bill comes every month on the same day, forever, until you die, and then the bill goes to your children. A fat lamp does not do that. A fat lamp is a one-time transaction with the world, and after that it is just you and the hog and the cotton plant and the sun that grew both of them. There is no middleman. There is no meter. There is no man in an office in a city you have never visited who decides what your light costs this month. Now, I am not telling you to tear the wires out of your house. I am not telling you to go dark. I am telling you that the knowledge of how to make light, real light, warm light, honest light, out of what you already throw away, was taken from you on purpose, not by accident, on purpose. Because a family that can light its own home cannot be frightened into paying whatever the bill says. My bishop, old Amos Stoltzfus, who passed in the winter of 1989, he used to say, "A man who owns his own light owns his own night, and a man who owns his own night is harder to sell things to in the daytime." I did not understand that when I was 14, and he said it to me by the wood stove. I understand it now. My grandmother, God rest her, she kept 3 fat lamps in her kitchen, and 1 in the pantry, and 1 on the stair landing, and she trimmed the wicks every Sunday afternoon, as regular as she wound the clock. She never once, in her 84 years, paid for a light bulb. She never once flinched when a storm knocked out the neighbors. She would light her lamps and go on with her supper, and the English children down the road would come running through the snow to look through her window at the golden glow, because their houses were dark and cold, and hers was warm. That is the whole of it. That is what I want you to understand. This is not a stunt. This is not a video trick. This is not a $9 setup for a summer camping trip. This is how people lit their homes in this country for 250 years before Thomas Edison, and for 60 years after him in places the wires had not reached yet. And it still works. Nothing has changed about fat. Nothing has changed about cotton. Nothing has changed about fire. The only thing that changed is that somebody convinced you it was old-fashioned, and old-fashioned meant bad, and bad meant you needed to buy the new thing. Old-fashioned means it worked for 10 generations without a warranty. That is what old-fashioned means. Here is what I want you to do this weekend. I want you to go into your kitchen and find one empty can, a soup can, a vegetable can, any can with a lid you can pierce. I want you to find one old cotton t-shirt, or one old cotton dish towel, or one old cotton pillowcase, and I want you to test a corner of it with a match to make sure it is real cotton. I want you to save the grease from the next pound of bacon you cook, or if you do not eat bacon, buy the cheapest bottle of cooking oil on the shelf. I want you to punch a hole in the lid with a nail. I want you to thread the wick. I want you to fill the can 2/3 full. I want you to set it on a plate, on your kitchen table, at night, with all the electric lights off. And I want you to sit there with your family for 10 minutes in that light. I want you to notice how your children's faces look in it. I want you to notice how the shadows move on the wall. I want you to notice how quiet the room becomes when the hum of the refrigerator and the buzz of the LED bulbs and the whine of the electronics is the only sound competing with a soft, steady flame. And I want you to ask yourself, honestly, what you have been paying for all these years. Tell me in the comments below what you filled your lamp with, and how long it burned, and whether your children liked it, or were frightened of it, because the answer will tell you something about the world we have made for them. I read every single one. I do not always answer, because the days are long and the fields do not plow themselves, but I read them all, and my wife reads them too. And we talk about them over coffee in the morning. Next time, I'm going to show you the winter version of this lamp, the one my grandfather used in the barn on the coldest nights of January, which uses beeswax instead of fat and burns almost without smoke and gives off a small ring of warmth strong enough to keep a newborn calf from freezing in a corner stall. I will show you how to make the wax yourself if you keep bees, and where to buy it honest and cheap if you do not. And I will show you the little clay dish that turns one candle into the light of 3, which is a trick from the old country that almost no one alive still remembers. Until then, be careful with your flames. Be kind to your wife. And remember that the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember. If this was worth your time, and I hope it was, subscribe to this channel and share this video with one person you love who is tired of paying a bill for something the earth gives away for free. That is all I ask. Good night from Lancaster County.